There is a saying, lion doesn't need to announce it's a lion. And yet, in today's world, we are conditioned to display every achievement, every insight, every step forward as if its value depends on being seen. But the deeper truth is this: the more real power you carry within, the less you need to speak about it. When the journey begins to change you from the inside, when clarity starts to replace confusion and stillness starts to overpower restlessness, something subtle but profound happens. So, your need to be seen begins to fade. This is not suppression, it's not hiding. It is a natural evolution of consciousness. A quiet self-assurance grows in you, not because you have nothing to share, but because you've realized that the energy spent trying to prove is energy lost from the practice itself. The chosen ones. Those who feel the pull of something greater. Those whose journey is not just about themselves but about something beyond. They begin to understand that discretion is not a strategy, it is a necessity. A discipline. A way of protecting what is still forming. Because when you expose your transformation too soon, you invite misunderstanding. You draw unnecessary resistance. And worst of all, you risk diluting the purity of your own process. The ego wants to be recognized. It wants applause, attention, validation. But the soul, the deeper self, seeks alignment, not applause. It knows that silence often contains more power than any explanation could. This is why those who walk the higher path learn to stay grounded in silence while the world rushes to speak. The mountain does not need to announce that it is tall. The river does not boast about the distance it flows. Their truth is evident through their presence. In the same way, when your actions begin to carry the weight of intention, when your discipline is no longer performative but internalized, your very being becomes your voice. The temptation to share every insight, every achievement, every awakening, that is a test. Can you allow yourself to evolve without external validation? Can you sit in the discomfort of not being understood? Not because you are failing, but because you are growing in ways words cannot yet capture. That's where the chosen ones distinguish themselves. Not in what they say, but in what they choose not to say. True power does not rush. It does not crave spotlight. It builds quietly, patiently, like the roots of a tree digging deep before it ever breaks the surface. And when it does rise, it needs no introduction. Its presence speaks louder than noise ever could. So if you feel the call, if you know deep down that your path is not ordinary, learn to hold it with care. Let your journey be sacred. Let your silence be your strength. And remember, the more you embody your truth, the less you need to explain it. When you're called to walk a higher path, that calling doesn't just elevate you, it isolates you. And it should, because not everyone is meant to carry what you're carrying. The deeper you go, the more responsibility you take on. And that responsibility demands stillness. Not the absence of movement, but the presence of inner clarity. Stillness is what allows you to see through the noise, to feel beyond distraction, and to act not from impulse, but from alignment. This is where most people struggle. They mistake visibility for progress, motion for growth, and noise for influence. But those who are chosen, not in a mystical sense, but in the real, lived experience of those toward higher consciousness, know that elevation always comes with cost. And part of that cost is learning to remain still even when the world tries to provoke you into reaction. You begin to realize that not everything demands your response. Not every challenge requires retaliation. Not every misunderstanding must be corrected. The higher your frequency, the fewer people will resonate with it. And that's not a sign you're off track. It's a sign you're entering a space few are ready for. That is not a burden to resent. It is a space to protect. There is a psychological shift that occurs when you stop seeing stillness as passivity and begin to understand it as power. You no longer chase after outcomes. You don't need to interrupt every silence with a word. You allow space, you allow delay, you allow the moment to unfold without controlling it. This doesn't mean you don't act. It means your action is precise, intentional, and necessary. That kind of restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. And the truth is, people feel it. Even when you say nothing, they feel the presence behind your quiet. They sense the gravity of someone who is not reacting, not explaining, not defending. That kind of presence is unsettling to those who seek attention and comforting to those who seek truth. But it only emerges in those who are willing to train themselves in the art of stillness. In philosophy, this echoes the Taoist idea of uluwei, effortless action doing without forcing. In psychology, it's the regulation of impulse, the self-command that comes not from repression, but from conscious intention. The chosen ones don't act because they want to appear strong. They act when the action is unavoidable, when the silence has served its purpose, and when the timing is right. And that timing cannot be rushed by ego. So if you've ever felt frustrated by your silence, by your withdrawal, by your quiet refusal to engage, trust that it's not weakness. It's refinement. You're learning not just how to act, but when to act and from what place within yourself. That's the kind of leadership the world rarely understands, but deeply needs. Because in the end, the highest strength is not how loudly you speak, but how deeply you listen before you do. In the early stages of transformation, there's a kind of urgency to announce every step forward. It's understandable. You feel the shift happening inside you, maybe for the first time in a long while. And naturally, you want to express it, share it, prove it. But here is where the difference between the unready and the truly chosen becomes visible. The unready make noise to convince others, while the chosen grow quiet because they no longer need to convince anyone, not even themselves. Clarity does not shout. It does not push. It does not argue for attention. When your inner world begins to organize itself, when your values align, your intentions purify, and your distractions fall away, something inside you settles. The chaos fades, and with that, the impulse to constantly speak fades too. Not because there is nothing to say, but because you've realized that the most important things cannot be explained, only embodied. Think of the seed. It breaks open underground in absolute silence. No fanfare, no performance. And yet, it is the beginning of something vast. The chosen ones grow in the same way. Their roots deepen out of sight. They invest time and energy into building something that the world will only witness much later, if at all. This stage of the journey is not glamorous. There's no applause here, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. It is the space where ego is humbled, where false identities dissolve, and where presence begins to replace performance. Psychologically, this process is about maturing beyond external validation. You start to detach from needing others to approve your choices, your growth, your path. That freedom allows you to conserve your energy. Instead of constantly explaining yourself, you observe. Instead of defending, you deepen. And as you deepen, you become harder to distract, harder to provoke, harder to manipulate. Because your clarity becomes your compass. And that clarity is born in the quiet. This is why silence is not just absence of noise, it's the foundation of discipline. It trains the mind to listen before it speaks. It sharpens perception. It teaches you to discern what is essential from what is performative. Those who walk the higher path do not seek to impress, they seek to become. And becoming is a silent art. Let others rush to be seen. Let them announce every minor shift. You, on the other hand, stay rooted. The deeper you go within, the less you'll need the surface to affirm you. And eventually, your silence will say what words never could. That you no longer need the world to witness your becoming, because your very presence carries the weight of everything you've endured, everything you've refined, and everything you've chosen to withhold. So the next time you're tempted to explain yourself, pause. The ones who truly understand won't need the explanation, and the ones who demand it aren't ready for the truth you carry. Growth is delicate in its early stages. It's like fire before it becomes flame, easily put out by wind, by water, by doubt. And yet, this is the exact moment when most people rush to share it. They expose their process, not realizing that exposure invites interference. What you reveal too early becomes vulnerable not just to others' opinions, but to their unconscious projections, their fears, and their own unprocessed limitations. The chosen ones learn this the hard way. But once they do, they begin to guard their process like something sacred. Because it is. There's a difference between hiding and protecting. Hiding comes from fear. Protection comes from wisdom. When you protect your growth, you're not avoiding the world. You're simply choosing when and how to let the world into your space. You understand that the mind is impressionable, especially when it's evolving. And if you're constantly explaining yourself, constantly inviting feedback, you're also inviting distortion. Even well-meaning people can unknowingly interrupt your path if you allow them into places they haven't earned the right to see. You begin to see that certain insights cannot be transferred through explanation. They must be lived. And so, the deeper you go, the more selective you become with your words, your circle, your energy. Not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Just as a builder doesn't invite guests into a house before the foundation is set, you learn to build in silence until what you've created can stand on its own. Philosophically, this is about containment. Like a vessel that holds water, your growth requires structure, boundaries. If you leak energy through endless conversation, comparison, or overexposure, you weaken the container. You lose heat, momentum, direction. The chosen ones remain discreet, not because they are secretive, but because they have learned the value of preserving what is sacred. They have discovered that some phases of life are not meant to be shared. They are meant to be lived privately, reflected on deeply, and revealed only when complete. This kind of discretion is not common, especially in a time when visibility is mistaken for worth. But it is a higher form of discipline. It is a way of protecting the clarity you are cultivating. Because clarity, once disturbed, takes time to return. One wrong conversation can plant a seed of doubt. One careless comment can derail a breakthrough. And so, silence becomes not only a form of strength, but a shield. If you're in a season of growth, protect it. Let it ripen in solitude. Don't be afraid to say less. Don't feel guilty for retreating. You are not here to be constantly understood. You are here to become undeniable. And when that moment comes, your evolution will speak for itself, louder than any words ever could. True strength never needs to prove itself. It reveals itself only when necessary. Like a sword kept sheathed until the moment of need, real power is not constantly on display. It is quietly preserved, steadily honed, and revealed only in decisive moments. This is one of the defining traits of the chosen ones. They understand that force without purpose is waste. They don't spend their energy trying to impress, because they're focused on refining the very force that others are trying to showcase prematurely. There is a difference between having strength and being mastered by the need to display it. Many people exhaust themselves trying to be seen as powerful. They speak in ways that sound forceful. They act in ways that look confident. But underneath, it is often fear driving their expression. Fear of being overlooked. Fear of not being enough. The chosen ones have moved beyond that. They don't confuse noise with impact. Their strength is not for performance. It is for precision. This kind of self-restraint requires deep inner discipline. And it's not easily understood. People may misinterpret your silence as weakness. They may see your calm as passivity. But what they can't see is the pressure building behind the silence. What they don't realize is that your calm is not emptiness. It is stored force, consciously held back until the right moment. Psychologically, this is what it means to integrate power. It's not scattered. It's not reactive. It doesn't need confirmation. It is centered, contained, and grounded. It does not seek attention because it has nothing to prove. And this is precisely what makes it so effective when it's finally activated. When someone who has trained in silence chooses to act, that action carries weight. There is no doubt, no hesitation, because that moment was not improvised, it was earned. This principle runs through all great disciplines, whether martial, spiritual, or intellectual. You train not to show off, you train to be ready. You refine yourself not for recognition, but for the rare moments when life calls for precision, presence, and power combined. The chosen ones know that they are not here to waste their strength in scattered battles. They are here to conserve, prepare, and strike only when the moment is fully aligned. This is why discretion is not just a spiritual virtue. It is a tactical one. The less the world knows about your capacity, the more advantage you have when it truly matters. And when that moment comes, it is not noise that delivers change. It is presence. It is timing. It is the quiet force that has been waiting patiently behind the scenes. So keep sharpening in silence. Let the world underestimate you if it must. Let others perform their power while you prepare yours. Because when your moment comes, it won't be your voice that proves you. It will be your impact. There comes a moment on the path when you stop needing to explain. Not because you've run out of things to say, but because you finally understood that the most profound truths are not spoken. They are lived. You see, the more you evolve, the more language starts to fall short. Words can describe, but they can never contain the fullness of what you're becoming. This is why the final stage of mastery is not louder expression. It is deeper silence. At the beginning, silence can feel like emptiness. It feels like withholding, like absence. But as you go deeper, you start to experience a different quality of silence. A silence that is not empty, but full of intention, full of awareness, full of presence. This is the silence of someone who has arrived, not externally, but inwardly. A person who no longer needs to prove, argue, or justify because they are anchored in who they are, and that anchoring cannot be shaken by misunderstanding or noise. Philosophically, this shift reflects the movement from external striving to internal alignment. You stop performing for the world because you've already found your place within it. And the paradox is that in becoming silent, you actually become more impactful. Your energy speaks, your discipline speaks, your decisions speak, and they do so with more clarity than words ever could. Psychologically, this is a transformation of identity. The ego, which feeds on recognition and reaction, gradually dissolves. In its place, a deeper self emerges, one that no longer clings to identity, but moves freely within life. You start to see the game for what it is. And in that seeing, you realize you no longer need to play it. Not because you've given up, but because you've transcended the need to be seen while doing so. This is what makes the chosen ones difficult to recognize at first. They don't shout. They don't self-promote. They're not interested in drawing attention. But once you encounter them, really encounter them, you feel it. You feel the depth behind their gaze, the steadiness in their presence, the absence of need in their energy. These individuals walk through life not chasing spotlight, but carrying light. And they do it without announcing it. So the question becomes, can you let your life speak for itself? Can you be content with being powerful in silence? Can you let go of the need to constantly be understood and instead focus on being true? Because that's what mastery looks like. Not louder, not more visible, just more real, more aligned, more free. In the end, the goal is not to be heard more. It is to need to be heard less. When your being becomes your message, your silence becomes your greatest strength. Let the world talk. You remain still. Let the noise rise. You remain clear. Because when you no longer speak to be seen, everything you do becomes a reflection of what you are.